everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching again. Shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hello, I'm That Loathsome Devil.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Let's see. Who am I? Just a guy living in Portland. Just kind of hashing out sad little songs and doing what I can to try to, contribute, I guess, to, kind of like the local scene. I've been really stoked. I haven't been doing it for too long within the music scene, but about 2 years.
Okay.
But I was hitchhiking before, so that's kind of how I started playing for people.
Gotcha.
It was like, well, I either play and be nervous and anxious for a little while, or go out and make some money, and then I can eat. So it's nice and simple.
Oh yeah. Now, did you was that your start into music altogether, or did you start when you were younger? What was the first moments of music for you?
Yeah, when I was younger, I first got a guitar, I think when I was about 12.
Okay.
And had just been listening to anything that was kind of in the cabinet of my adopted parents' place. So found all sorts of stuff in there. But I kind of fell in love with Green Day. Was the big first love for me, and I was like, oh, cool, I want to learn how to play that. So just started off with simple power chords and stuff, and it would be a while until it actually my type of style and where I've kind of grown into would come along. But
gotcha.
A lot of it was just kind of playing at home, just trying to learn how to play guitar, teaching myself, just because I found it fascinating, and just listening to songs, and especially having physical media, going through CDs and looking through the lyrics, and it's wow, I get so excited with the music, and now I'm starting to check out the lyrics and see how I feel about it. So eventually it caught me into just kind of writing, trying to imitate what I was listening to.
Okay.
I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. And it took me a while to kind of get comfortable with it, and then I kind of just fell into poetry.
Ah, okay.
And then that was kind of nurtured in high school.
Yeah.
And then eventually somewhere along the line, it all kind of globbed together.
Now, before we run too far into the middle portion of what was happening, early on, was anybody else around you musical at all, or were you kind of the first musician?
I was the only music that I was kind of around, I guess, was my guardian at the time, part of the Church of Latter-day Saints, so I'd hear a lot of church music and stuff, and hymns, but it wasn't anything that really got me into anything. I think my first big kind of experience with music, aside from oldies radio, which that's really what I kind of have gravitated towards in my older age, but oldies, and then Weird Al was probably my favorite. It was just oh, this is hilarious and this is so cool. I thought it was the coolest thing. I remember trying to show people at school. They're oh, that's dorky.
Yeah, people, I think early on Weird Al, people didn't quite get right away. And then when he blew up, everybody was oh, he's the best. I was he's been here the whole time, you guys. Yeah, that was definitely one of those, you either got it right away or you did not get it for a long, long time.
Yeah. And then there's just like a brilliance to his stuff. So it's like, not only just kind of being a dork myself, but then also like as I got older, like looking back at some of that stuff, I'm like, that takes a lot of talent to be able to rewrite a song and actually have it be like equally as fun and as engaging. So definitely Weird Al was a huge inspiration as far as like getting me into music and kind of listening to stuff and kind of like the formula of pop music. Yeah. Which I can definitely say it's where like a lot of the writing ends up kind of coming into, and the way I write kind of has a pop formula to it.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's Weird Al, like Clash, Green Day, okay, like kind of punk stuff. And then eventually got into like Tom Waits. Tom Waits was another one in like middle school that kind of set me out on the path of like folk music and jazz and stuff. And then eventually found the blues, like, and started just going back.
Kind of like deconstructing music at this point.
And I guess like when I was growing up listening to the oldies kind of stuff, it's just like Kingston Trio and Beach Boys and all that kind of stuff. Which was like very, very like rich type of stuff to be able to kind of get into, like Sam Cooke, another great inspiration. Just like, listen to all that kind of stuff. And then getting older where I'm like, oh, the new stuff, fast punk stuff, like settle down. I'm like, now I actually kind of want something to kind of chew on. So, blues, jazz, folk, it's just kind of gravitated towards all that stuff. And then eventually, like I said, when I went hitchhiking, got myself an acoustic guitar, and I was like, this is a lot better than trying to drag around an amp or like.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, I was just like, all right. From then on, I was like, probably around like 15 or 16, just started playing acoustic.
Oh God. Oh, so you just like headed on your way out at a young age.
Yeah. I mean, I still listened to like a lot of the punk stuff, but it wasn't until later that I found like some of the more folky stuff. But yeah, I eventually just got into acoustic guitar because it was easier to kind of carry around.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I just kind of realized, especially listening to blues, it's like, that's one person playing that. That's phenomenal. And like I'd say most notably, I was Alan Lomax's Southern Journey, field recordings and stuff. And that was like, whoa, holy cow. I just like discovered so much like American history, cause it's just like songs passed down generation to generation, various regions and areas. And I was like, this is phenomenal. And I really found that like there was so much tragedy with like the experience of just like Americans growing up, or like as the country grew and everything, and just the music developed. Yeah. Wow, you really get like such an interesting viewpoint through that lens. So I fell in love with that stuff. And then eventually I was just like, oh man, I really like, that's something that has captured like my interest the most. I'm like, how can I create that, but still like not be an imitation or like, I can be an enthusiast, but my big aim was just to be able to carve out my own sound from everything I experienced, but not be, not just like them. Yeah. It was just like, because I loved what they did, but I'm like, how can I figure out how to do that? There's got to be some way.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably cover that more in the middle portion of this. So we're going to put a pin in that right here. Before we get too far into it, I do have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on. And this first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
First album, I think it was Dookie.
Okay.
It was Dookie.
Yeah.
That's wrong. I think it was actually a Weird Al one. It was Running with Scissors.
Okay, hell yeah.
That was the very first one.
I mean, two quality choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to?
I have to say one of the first big ones I think was Social Distortion and Tiger Army.
Okay, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, because I'd heard Social Distortion on the radio a bunch, but Tiger Army was kind of new to me. So like going and experiencing them like in person, I was completely blown away. It was just the coolest thing.
And Tiger Army's not a name I hear enough.
Yeah, they're. I feel like a lot of people sleep on them. But I think they've got like really solid musicianship and lyricism.
They were always like attached to other people, like not so much in their music, but like for some reason it was always somebody and Tiger Army. You know what I mean? Them standing on their own never seemed to like permeate the main space in quite the right way.
Yeah, and I also feel that their sound was just like very unique. Again, like they weren't solely psychobilly or like too rockabilly.
Yeah.
But they had their own like homage to that kind of stuff, but it still felt like authentic.
Yeah.
And it felt good. And like I feel like when it comes to a lot of other artists that I've listened to within those kind of genres and stuff, I'm like, sometimes it ends up getting a little stale for a while. But every now and then I'll put on some Tiger Army, like, damn, dude, that's a damn good song.
Oh yeah.
Like Outlaw Heart, that's an awesome one. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a rad show.
It was a fantastic show. Yeah, especially just being able to kind of experience like an upright bass, rockabilly upright bass, the pace they're going is like, this is phenomenal. They, in my opinion, they blew Social Distortion out of the water. So yeah, that was fantastic. And I remember being the like only one out of my friend group. There were two other buddies I had gone with, and they were like about Social Distortion, but like loathed Tiger Army. It was just like too leaning towards like a kind of country feel, too much for him. Like, it sucks, man. I was like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, you're like, this is good music. I don't know. Yeah. Hey, I mean, that during that era, that was definitely kind of the like you had to default to. I think music now has kind of gotten in a way where you're like, you should be open to everything. And like the music itself lets for it as well.
And the accessibility of everything. Like,
yeah, that I think does play a huge part in it.
Yeah, it's, I think we are extremely spoiled. I'm still kind of having to kind of like get my sea legs with it.
Yeah.
Especially coming from a place of getting physical media and finding things through that lens of curiosity. But like now sometimes I'm kind of like overwhelmed. Like, all right, I need to like step back for a second.
Yeah, I love the fact that like for me, at least me personally, when I'm looking for new music, and I won't go too long because we got to get more into your stuff. But when I'm looking for new music, I like the random variability of it. Like, you know, like back in the day, you had to go to a CD shop, CD place. You had to go to a record shop, and you just had to trust. You had to trust either in the album, or if they were fortunate enough to have something where you could check it out, you had to trust your pick was going to sound good when you went over to it, so you weren't just sitting there for hours. And sometimes you just bought stuff based off of the cover.
Yeah.
Like plenty of times. That's how I found out about Ninja Tunes, but that's for another time. And so now what I do, and I have said this many times on the show, but every morning on my way to work, I try to listen to an album that I have never heard of before. Never heard. No, I won't know the artist. I won't know what their sound is. Nothing. I'll just pick one and I'll put it on. And for those, 20 to 40 minutes, however bad traffic is, that is the soundtrack for it.
That's sweet.
And that's like how I get to do my diving now. That's how I'll find stuff I had never heard of and would have never if I had just gone through the usual stuff.
Right.
But I love the fact that when I want to hear something, when I need to like actually listen to the thing that like my heart knows, it's just right there. Like one of my favorite albums of all time is Demon Days by Gorillaz.
Oh, yeah.
I listen to it at least once a month to like once every 3 weeks. It's, one of the tracks is my alarm for my phone. Like that's, and it's just nice. Like I have it on record, but I'm not always near a record player in the middle of my day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just need Demon Days.
Yeah.
It's like, I appreciate that it has brought that to us, but I think not enough people just use it for random. And that's the best part of it is like, you have a whole record shop in your pocket.
Yeah.
And you're just going to listen to a playlist somebody else put together. Like, come on, like live a little. It costs you nothing but your monthly subscription if you even pay that.
Yeah. And just a little bit of time. If you're serious about it and you really want to like discover something, it's like, oh yeah, it's out there. And I think it's a great. We're just spoiled that we have the ability to reach out to so many different things. Because then you end up finding something that you're like, oh,
I found so many cool things through that way. But like I said, let's get back into the interview itself. Before we move into more of the middle portion where we talk about what you do in the now, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music? Oh, excuse me. Do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
I'd say, honestly, within the past couple years, like I've been kind of writing songs here and there. I'm very sporadic about it, but it's kind of had these things where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling comfortable with songwriting. I'm feeling starting to feel inspired and being able to get like a concept down in a way that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm conveying something, but it has momentum to it. So it's like, it's not just stagnant where I'm not repeating myself. But let's see. Let me train of thought here.
No, you're good. Moment where you decided you wanted to take it more seriously.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, it was kind of just going out to open mics and stuff because I was like, well, I used to busk, so I was at least somewhat comfortable with playing in front of people.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, you know what? The only way for me to kind of get better at this is to be able to start going out there. And I knew that, that's how it was when I was like hitchhiking. So,
yeah.
It's like, well, if you want to do something, if you want to get better at this, just go out and do it, and then be surrounded by other people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a real treat because you get to see other people get to listen, and then you guys get to exchange like ideas or like, you just kind of see what people are doing. And I think it's awesome to be able to have that opportunity to see people create, also be nervous as hell and everything. And you're like, oh yeah, we're all in this together. I'd say within the last 2 years, and I've had a really great buddy, another fellow Portland musician, Arden Cole, who's really helped to push me, like coming out. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I'm usually pretty busy, so it's like, because of him, I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep on carving this out. Just within the last 2 years, I started playing shows because of him and a bunch of other fellow musicians that I've shared bills with and stuff. So now it's just kind of getting to know people, and the people are just like, yeah, man, you want to come see stuff? You want to come open up for us? We like your stuff. So I'm like,
oh yeah, I dig that.
This is awesome.
Oh yeah. All right, well then let's go ahead and let's get on into you in the present day.
Yeah.
We are going to get an easy one out of the way first, though.
Cool.
How'd you pick the name?
Honestly, it was kind of about my longtime ex with my mother, my kids. We did not get along, and like I was just kind of thinking about it, and like, yeah, you really kind of think of me as like some kind of devil, and then like I was like, that loathsome devil just kind of like popped up in my head. I'm like, that's a fun little like thing. It's just like, it's kind of exciting. It kind of had like an old time kind of feel to it. So I was like, yeah, let's go with it. And then it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was just messing around at home one day and was just like taking some pictures because I had gotten a cool deer skull.
Mm-hmm.
And so like my demo has that picture, and so it was like, That Loathsome Devil, I've got the image. This works.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I dig that.
Yeah.
Now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process a little bit. And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning.
Okay.
So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music. What do you do to get a track started?
It usually starts with like an idea or a word, and then I just kind of attach to that. And then I'll just start kind of sitting down, writing it, like, kind of do like a bit of a, like a diagram in my head. And it's like, all right, start word association with these things. What are some images that pop up? And like, I try to use a lot of imagery, in my writing. So
that is good to know for something I have to say later.
Right. It's just kind of starting with a phrase or an idea, or, some concept and stuff. And, now I'm starting to kind of hone in on a sound that, a lot of it's just kind of like, all kind of based around like struggles and kind of just downer stuff. But it's like, right, like I used to only just write love songs, but now it's like all like the subtleties of what like kind of fall within that, where it's just like a lot of the betrayal or disappointment and all these kind of things. So it's like, oh, there's just so much within these like broad categories to be able to find something.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like recorded and put out per se, but like you've gotten it written. How long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to perform a track?
That I just kind of sit down and fiddle around with it. Some songs I've had, like I've created the music for it, and then I was like, I have no idea what to write to this. Like this is kind of out of my element. I really like the music.
Yeah.
But what's going to be a fitting sort of topic to match the atmosphere of it, you know? And I've had stuff that I've sat on for like 10 years, and like just like one song that I have, I just wrote lyrics to it after about 10 years.
Damn. Okay.
Sometimes I hold on to things. I'm like, I really like the sound of that. Or like I'll have just like a verse floating around for a couple years, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'll just be like kind of driving around, kind of spacing out, and then all of a sudden just kind of clicks. I'm like, oh wait, and then, you know, grab something, get my phone. Yeah, and then eventually I just start piecing them together. I have a weird thing that I'm trying to work on, but it's like I always get like a verse and a chorus. I'm like, that's great. I really like the topics. I really like the trajectory of it. But now that second verse is going to be the difficult thing where it's just like, okay, still carrying along the topic, not repeating yourself, but then in closure. Yeah. You know, so yeah, that's a bit of a difficulty, but I'm pushing with it more, and just, I don't know, kind of all around, kind of just honing everything. So I'm hoping to kind of break down the spaces in between creating stuff. So
yeah, hell yeah. Now as far as like putting words together, because I'm going to be honest with you, that is like that is definitely not my strength. When it comes to like putting words together, like you said, you are like a very visual person. You do a lot of imagery. Are you like pen to paper? Are you just like in your phone? Are you just like whatever you can get your hands on to write something on? How do you go about like putting the words together?
Usually my phone. Okay. It's the best option because I become kind of a perfectionist if I'm writing it on a notepad. So I'll just start, you know, scratching stuff out. I'm like, I don't like the way that O was written. It's a little crooked or something. Fair. It's just, it annoys the hell out of me. So at least having like having the phone, just be able to type something in, delete it, and be like, oh, this is nice, crisp, clear. It's not overwhelming for me. Gotcha. Okay. But then also at the same time, like within like one note, I'll have maybe like 5 songs going, and there's just like little parts of each one. So, but yeah, the phone's been so handy just because it's like at any moment. I mean, it's always on me, so I can just write something down or, you know, see something. I'm like, oh, got to put that in there. So, hell yeah. Well, then let's go ahead now and let's talk about some of your music. So, you know, I hopped on ye old Spotify and I checked out your most recent demo, and I jumped on Bandcamp and I checked out your other demo. Oh, yeah. So I actually gave them both a listen. I went in reverse order. I went Bandcamp and then Spotify because there were no Spotify links on your Instagram initially. So I started at Bandcamp and then jumped on Spotify after. Right. And the first EP, oh my God, I wrote the name of it. Is it That Loathsome Part 1, The Loathsome Devil. Yeah. Devil. Yeah. Demo, yeah. Demo. Yeah, that one got me a couple times, like self-titled. Oh, wait, it's not self-titled. It's really cool. Thank you. It's really cool. The thing that stood out to me, like immediately stood out to me, and I just could not, I was waiting for it to change, and it never changed, was how full the actual presentation is. Because it's just you and your guitar. Yeah. It's just the guitar. It's just you. Those are the only voices in the whole thing. But there was never a moment in time where there wasn't movement. There was never a moment in time where there wasn't this like unity between you and the instrument. And even further past that, it had this, I'm trying to think of the right word. I couldn't even write down what it was, but there was just something about the like total experience that like, it didn't feel like I was listening to just a guy and his guitar. It felt like there was this music in the in-between that was just really enjoyable. And in a way that like, it made me have to keep listening. I had to keep knowing what's next. I listened to the whole thing like 3 times because I couldn't make notes the first time because I got too busy listening to it.
And then I went and checked out your most recent EP, which is The Loathsome Part 1.
Yeah.
And that one, a little bit grittier.
Yeah.
A little bit more, a little more accompaniment. It had some percussion elements and other layers and things. But it felt like the most natural progression for your music, because what was added into that did not remove what I experienced from the first one. So it felt like a continuation, but also, and like I said, I'm glad you said this earlier, your sound made me see things. Like there was imagery in what I was hearing. Like I could imagine things, but not specific. It was like very, like I saw things, but they were like hazy. There was just this element of something shaping in my head the whole time, to where like I wanted to place the music, but I was busy listening to the music. So I wasn't like creating that scene. Gotcha. So it kind of just felt like I was in it. And that is just a really cool aspect to have for, like I said, really just being vocals and guitar in a lot of ways. Even when you had the other elements on your newer stuff, they didn't feel like they were like more music per se. They felt like they were there to add to your music. And it just really, it was a really, really special experience. I really enjoyed listening to your songs. Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's nice to have that kind of feedback too, because I get so like in my head, especially being just like a acoustic player and singer. It's like, always just feel like that guy, like at college or something like that.
You're like, hey, want to play Wonderwall?
That's all I ever think of every single time I'm walking around with my bag or something like that. It's just like in the back of my head, I'm just giving myself some crap, But yeah, it's really nice to hear that. And I'm I try to add a little extra something to the one on Spotify, just because they kept to get a lot of people being like, that's good stuff. You should have a band,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I'll mess around with it. And since they're just demos of kind of the concepts, I was like, yeah, I'll just put that out there, and then it gives some people like a place of reference. But where I'm at now with everything, I finally honed it to the point where I'm able to do something that I find exciting on the guitar, and still be able to have the storytelling and the singing a part of it. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm kind of just drawing from a lot of like folk finger picking and like kind of gypsy jazz melody voicings with like extended chords and stuff.
Yeah.
So just so it's going to be a little more exciting.
Well, you definitely nail it there for sure.
Thank you.
But I am curious to know now, out of all the tracks you have available that like people can go and check out, what are some of your favorite ones to perform?
I'd say probably first and foremost, one of my favorite ones is When the Lights Dim Low. It's a nice spooky little like, kind of country kind of thing, nice and dusty.
Yeah.
But that one I get to kind of like, sometimes I'll get to belt it out, or sometimes I try to make it like create like a kind of pressure with it. So it's like kind of play it quietly, but kind of like you can just feel it kind of bubbling up, and then be able to kind of, kind of bring the energy up and have the chorus swell and stuff. So, it's really fun in that manner, just because it's like, yeah, I get to do, it's kind of like a whisper or a secret of something that you're kind of like not kind of supposed to know. You know what I mean? I don't know. So yeah, that one's really fun. Especially where it's at now. I'm just able to do like some extended chord stuff with it, and just really have it be exciting and have it swell. So to match the vocals.
Oh yeah. And then for this next one, you already kind of touched on this, so if you don't have a direct answer for it, that's fine. But are there any tracks that you've got like cooking right now that are almost ready to come out?
Yeah, actually, I just found out that this old laptop that I have, I didn't think it worked anymore, but it does. So okay. I've got like some recording equipment already, but I'm getting some mics and stuff because I want to get I've got like probably like 35 songs.
Okay.
Some that are released, other ones that haven't been released, but within the next like few months, I'm really hoping to just hunker down, do it the way that I want to do it, and then just start releasing everything, because a lot of the stuff has just been kind of sitting on, or I've just been kind of sitting on. So now that I actually have the power like in my own hands to be able to do these things, instead of having to kind of wait on like other people's schedule or my schedule being too busy, it's just like right when I feel it, I'm going to get in there, get it done. And hopefully this is going to be what the sound of That Loathsome Devil will be from now on.
Oh yeah, well, definitely looking forward to that.
Thank you.
For this next one, then, I want to zoom out. I want to kind of look at music more as a whole.
Yeah.
What are some of the things about either like new music? So if you're somebody who's taken in the new, or if you're not, that's fine. But something that's new to you that you found recently that you enjoy or you're finding inspiration in at the moment.
I mean, I found him a few years ago, but I was reading through, I think, an interview with like a band that I like based out of New Orleans, the Deslons. And one of their singers had like a list of recommended stuff, and actually happened to be C.W. Stone King was on there.
Oh, cool.
And he's been like a huge inspiration to me. It's like him, Tom Waits, like Andrew Bird, Sam Cooke, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, he's phenomenal because it's like he has this old timeless sound, but he's just kind of he's progressing the conversation, so it's like the songs don't feel stale. He's an amazing performer. I've seen him live. I think it was one of the few times I just like not wept, but definitely like
you felt it. You felt it for
sure. Man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites right now, but he's kind of based on just like an older feel. But as far as, let's see, I think of well, maybe we'll come back to another one here soon.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, that's kind of more of an open-ended question in the way that it is anyways. But then before we get into the next portion, the next question is probably the densest question I've got in the interview. But we've talked a lot about, your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
It gives me a place to kind of sit in my experience and my emotions, which I like love, because it's like, the hustle bustle, keeping busy and stuff. You're like, oh yeah, you got to be like in the outside world and kind of play its game. But like being able to sit down and really experience, like, 'cause again, like I really love the one-on-one type of thing. So it's like single guitar player singing or something just super stripped down, but with a lot of just like meaty context and stuff. That's where I love just feeling that like swell of joy, of like fascination. It's like I don't know. It leaves me with like a childlike wonder when I'm listening to something that really captures me. I'm just like completely fascinated and taken aback. So it really just kind of helps to reset me, gives me an outlet to kind of breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and so, yeah, I take the things that I ingest all have a lot of weight to me. So.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
Ready.
And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Right.
But this first one's pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
That's a hard one.
It's not to say if you pick this person, everybody else in the world is off the table.
Yeah.
First that comes to mind.
I mean, I think just to be in the same room with him and watch him just kind of pick something up and go would be Andrew Bird. That guy's just phenomenal fiddle player, violinist. Like, he's just so accomplished, and I'm constantly amazed with, like, he's got a huge discography, but he always just kind of reinvents himself every time and has like such a broad repertoire. So I'm just like, that's fascinating. I'd be thrilled to be able to just sit in the midst of somebody that's just that musically intelligent, and to have just like so much depth. I don't know. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Local artists. I mean, I guess I've mostly just kind of been meeting people. So I guess I haven't really been like diving too much into kind of the local scene. Like I said, I get a little overwhelmed.
That's fair.
Sometimes. So I'm like, I don't know where to go. But like if people give me suggestions and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'll check that out. But yeah, I mean, as guess I don't have anybody like off the top of my head.
That's all right. Everybody, you know what to do. At somebody in the comments that you think you should jam with.
Please do.
And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power. It's guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. And it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
Just because I like the aesthetic of it is Red Rocks.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Just all that stone. I'm like, God, that's so cool. Large open theater.
That has definitely been a recurring answer in a lot of ways for that question. It is definitely one of the coolest venues. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks spectacular. I mean, I've seen it recently twice. It's like on a Bill Burr special. And then, yeah.
That was actually the first time I ever saw like Red Rocks in something, was that special.
Yeah. And it's all dark and everything. And it's just like, it's so, it just creates such an awesome little atmosphere. It's like, oh, that's so visually striking. And so I think even just like playing there at night, you know, where you get the red and the black and stuff, like, oh, this is nice and spooky.
Yeah.
And then was it the other time I was watching, I think it was a Sierra Farrell performance.
Hell yeah.
And that was like during the day or something like that, but it's still breathtaking.
Very much so. All right. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, could have put out an album yesterday, who would you want an album from?
I mean, it's been a while since we've heard anything from Tom Waits. It would be nice to be able to get another dirty little record like Real Gone or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then let's go ahead and we're going to start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and June?
Now in June. Well, I've got a couple shows coming up. Let's see. I've got one on the 6th, and I have to actually double check on that. I'll post it if it follow on my Instagram.
Fair.
Hear that, guys?
Which actually, I'll have you go ahead and stare at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram at That Loathsome Devil, on Spotify and Bandcamp. There's a SoundCloud out there too. Yeah, I'm hoping within the next 6 months to get you guys actually some hard copies of what I've curated everything into. So just keep following me on Instagram, and you'll get all the info as it comes.
Oh yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
Oh yeah, dude, definitely my buddy Arden Cole. You guys got to check him out. He's Ride or Die. He's the reason that I'm even playing with anybody, that I've known anybody. So definitely shout out to him.
Oh yeah. All right. With that being said, I've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Yeah.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
All right.
But in all of music, what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a bit of a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
I don't know about how obscure it would be, but I have a deep love for Cuban music. And one of the first experience I had with that was Buena Vista Social Club. So
okay,
Buena Vista Social Club, the album's awesome, but then there's also the movie, where it's like the documentary of how they found all these old artists and all these live performances. It's a treat. I was actually just re-listening to the album the other day, and then all the artists that they kind of formed the super group, they all have their own individual thing. So just some amazing stuff to watch.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I've got one that I want to give to you.
Oh yeah. Really.
And I don't exactly know what it's called, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Just gonna have to trust in Google, but I promise you'll find it. But have you ever seen The Life Aquatic?
Yeah.
The gentleman who sings and plays guitar.
So you Zorze.
Yeah, he made a whole album of the songs he played, all the like David Bowie covers.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard it, it's phenomenal.
I have, yeah.
Okay, cool. Because that was something where when I was listening to your music, I was like, there's something here that's attached to this. So just in case you hadn't, but of course it doesn't surprise me that you have. It's very good.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I remember coming across the soundtrack and stuff, and then like listening to his interpretation. I was like, this is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, there you go. That's a rec for y'all then.
Yeah,
definitely go check it out. But with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
awesome.
And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm That Loathsome Devil.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.